Hello, students. Hello, masters of your own destiny. What's going on? Thank you for being back here with me from Suarez Basement, your backstage pass to the entertainment industry. No doubt about it. If you want to be informed, if you want to be educated, and why not also you want to be entertained about the industries of communication, media, and the art, this is the place to be. That is true. This is the place to be. And we want to remind you that we're looking for you. Yes, if you want to co-host an episode from Suarez Basement with me, you only have to write us here from suarezbasement@gmail.com and let us know that you want to co-host. Hey, you never know. We would love to have you over and to be able to connect you, the students, with the experts in the field. And talking about experts, today we're putting the cherry on top of the cake because we have the director of one of my always time favorite TV shows, Breaking Bad. I love that show. Colin Bucksey is in the house. He is Emmy Award winner for his work in Fargo. He also directs Fargo, Breaking Bad, Miami Vice. He has an extensive experience in television production and television direction, so we couldn't be in better hands. And like I always do, I invite two students to be part of the conversation. Again, talking about co-hosting, I have Seamus Lobene with us. He was my TA for my script writing class and my video production class, and I have Michael Alchin with us. He was the main editor for the holiday television special, and oh my God, he's an amazing video editor. So I have two great individuals to have a conversation with Colin Bucksey today. Thank you guys for being here, and remember, this is from Suarez Basement, your backstage pass to the entertainment industry. Let's start our video podcast right away. Here we go.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about, guys?
Well, I wanted to ask, because you've had an exceptionally fulfilling or long and good career, that I wanted to know what it has been like to move through the different formats over the past 40 some odd years, you know?
I know. Yeah, it's more than that, actually.
Well, yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, I suppose the biggest difference for me was when I came to America from England, where I'd been working for the BBC. I'd been doing plays on TV by some quite acclaimed writers, and doing things in quite a different way and having much more of a hand in the whole process than one is now used to doing in America. Because episodic television, which is what I've done most of here, is a medium where the writer is king, and you're basically working as a director, you're working for a showrunner, and you're working to put his vision on the screen. And you're making decisions about not only your episode, but things that concern the whole series. And very often you're asking that question of yourself: am I doing this because I want to do this, or because this is going to make it better for the audience to understand the series over the long term? So, for instance, there's a much shorter prep time for a series, for an episode of television here, usually something like 8 days, and then anything from 8 to maybe 11 days shooting. And then once the editor has put together his assembly, you have 4 days in the cutting room.
Oh, wow.
To cut together your episode. That's a DGA rule, and that's your DGA allotment. And when I was in England doing this kind of thing, or not doing this kind of thing, but doing longer form, one would stay with the whole post-production process through to the finished article, music and all. And here one has to get used to the idea of, there's my cut, I hand it over, and some weeks, months later, you see a version of it that's been attacked by various other people, and you hope that they haven't fucked your episode up too bad.
That is a good one.
That was the biggest contrast for coming from England to working in America. But I've got used to it, and that's the way I work now.
Mm.
How do you say you've had to adjust to working with so many different hands?
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing. Every different show that you go on to, there's a new set of people. New DP, new first AD, new production designer, new showrunner, new writers. It's all new. Obviously, there are shows that you're asked to come back on, and that's great. If you've had a good time with those people, then you get to come back and work with them again. And by doing that, you have achieved a sort of shorthand with those people, because you've worked with them before. You don't have to go through a whole lengthy process of explaining what you want. But it can be, you can do 10 different shows and have 10 different groups of people. So part of it is being able to be flexible enough to work with people who have completely different ideas, completely different ways of lighting, working, running a set, and so on.
But I do have a question, Colin, because it's very interesting. And again, I love this conversation. That's why we have you here. Everything that you have done is say so far, give us these behind the scenes that we normally don't see, right? So my question is, what is the balance between the business aspect and the artistic aspect, right? Because yes, it's true. It's a business. You say, this is the amount of scenes we need to shot today. This is the cost. However, when we see shows, in my opinion, of the quality of Breaking Bad and Fargo, and it's definitely a very incredible artistic part and aspect behind. How you find that balance as a director? Because one part of you understand the business and say, this is what we need to accomplish, but I want to be sure also that I create something that I feel proud of.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've arrived at a point where I don't really think that much about the business end of it. I'm confident enough in my own abilities to know that what I want to do is going to work, both artistically, if that's how you want to put it, and in terms of the budget of the show. And if something's going to cost a lot of money to do, I can make a case for that. And because in a way I have a certain amount of respect coming from the producers, I can get away with saying, it doesn't matter that it's going to cost more. That's what we should do, because that's what's going to be great for the show. And they will listen to me. I have to say, this is not a boast, that winning an Emmy does an awful lot for other people's respect of your opinions and spending. But really, I think that when I get a script, you get a script for a show that's as good as Breaking Bad, it really tells you exactly what you should do. I'm not saying that Vince writes down, now you should shoot this, now you should, but when you read it, you go, yeah, I understand this. This is how I'm going to go about it. And this is the style of the show. And I understand instinctively and through a certain amount of experience that this is how it should be done.
Do you ever get the chance to, like, if you really think some kind of idea is going to be really good for the show, do you ever get the chance to like change the script at any point with the writer?
Yeah. When you say change the script, writers in television are very protective of their words.
Right.
However, the way that a scene is shot will be very much up to me. And if it needs to be taken out of, say, two people talking across a table in an office. That's the way the writer has written it. And I want to put more forward motion into the episode by taking it out of that interior and taking it outside and having people on the move. Then I'll tell that to the writer in such a way that he or she will think it's a good idea. Because I love to keep things on the move and not to have the thing become very static. So Vince was very good at listening to those kinds of suggestions and being enthusiastic about them. The interesting thing about Breaking Bad, if we want to talk about that episode for a moment, and the way that Vince hands over the episode completely to the writer of that particular episode. I mean, how much of it goes on in the writing room and Vince rewrites it, I'm not exactly sure because I'm not in the writing room. But he will always hand the credit to the writer. And he or she will be on the set. And, if you want to change something, then Johnny Hutcherson will say, yeah, let's do that, or let's call Vince. But, Vince is very generous on giving credit to both the writer and the director.
And Colin, you mentioned something that is interesting to me. Not that you have the $1 million answer, but you say it's a very big difference between a good writer and a bad writer. Meaning, when a director takes a good script, you can very easily imagine what you're going to be doing. What could define for you a good script? Meaning, for example, some of my students ask, well, should I really, in the scene description, be very descriptive and describe everything that is there? Or should I be, and I always say you need to find that balance, right? Where you can give the director enough information for him to understand the concept. What do you think will define a good script?
Well, as you say, don't over-describe what the scene is. I mean, I've read scripts that are purely the dialogue, with no stage directions, and I will also not read the stage directions, because I don't want to get bogged down in someone else's idea of what the character is doing, or where they're moving to, and so on. I'll very often just not read that, so that I can have the freedom to have them, the characters do what I want. Or lots of times, the input from the actors will be really important, and it will have nothing to do with a piece of stage direction. The best kinds of scripts don't need very much stage direction. It'll be in the dialogue and the way that the characters interact with each other. A lot of not so good scripts are overthought. Don't overthink it. I mean, that's one of Vince's favorite sayings. I like the way you're thinking there, Colin, but you're overthinking it, right? And I'll very often pick that up and say it to actors or writers. Don't overthink it. A lot of this is instinctive, and it comes from the gut rather than from up here. Don't get too cerebral about it. Just go with your feelings, and hope that you get a script that's good enough to let you use your feelings about it to direct it.
Oh wow!
In what way, or where do you think, switching directions, where do you think sensibilities have changed as far as what you've worked on, what you get to work on, kind of in the past years?
Well, I mean, I think because of cable and now streaming, the episodes of those shows that we mentioned, you know, Breaking Bad, Fargo, etc., they're very far away from what I started working on in America, which were network shows that had a story of the week. The whole thing started and ended and was all bound up in one episode, and it was done, and you move on. The serialization of TV series is really the biggest change in sensibilities that I can really think of.
Yeah.
That writers can enlarge upon, you know, what might be a 90-minute movie, and it's a 10-hour movie. Sometimes that's not so great, but when it's done really well, it's terrific.
Yeah, there's so many layers to directing. I mean, what would be two, you know, golden rules, golden things to really keep in mind for aspiring directors and producers out there?
Never wear shorts to work.
Noted.
Well, I mean, the golden rule for me is that you really know the script, and when you're asked what can be very deep questions about it, usually by actors, because actors are only concerned about one thing, that's their character. And you as a director are concerned with every aspect of the show. So people are always coming up to you and asking questions which concern only their aspect. And you got to know the answers. And if you don't necessarily know the answer, then I think, you know, you have to, especially with actors, realize that you can direct by asking a question.
Can you give us an example?
Well, I mean, you know, what? Okay, well, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about that? I think it might be this, but you clearly are asking this question because there's some kind of doubt in your mind, or what are you thinking? But really, I think the answer to your question is you have to have the answer.
And Colin, we do have a question that I'm sure Seamus and Michael and a lot of the students share. Is this a factor of why television shows doesn't stick with one director? A lot of people, a lot of students think like, well, it doesn't make sense if you really want to develop a whole season. Why the director doesn't have this capacity to develop the entire season? Why is always this change in directors?
Well, I think there's more of that happening, that you'll find that one director directs a whole season. I mean, one of the reasons is that you have such a short amount of time to do an episode of television, like we talked about. 8 days prep, 10 days shooting, 4 days in the cutting room. If you attempt to have one director direct, let's say, all 10 episodes of a season of television, you have to have certainly a lot more time in terms of prep, and probably more time in terms of television, because, you know, the director has to have then 10 hours of screen time inside his head. So it's going to take, and also the scripts aren't necessarily written like that. 10 scripts aren't written. I mean, I just talked to a writer, and I said to him, well, okay, we've been in lockdown nearly 6 months now. You must have all 10 episodes written. He said, I haven't got any. So that's I think one of the reasons. But I think there is these days a wanting to, on the part of showrunners, producers, to want to have, if not one director, let's say 2 or 3, direct the whole season. Because as what you're saying is, if you want the style to stay the same over a whole season, then why not have one person do it? I think if you've got a couple of people, or 2 or 3 people, then you're much more likely to have that overall vision. And very often there's a figure called a producing director. And a producing director will direct a number of episodes of the show, and he'll be there all the time as in a producing capacity to help guest directors who are coming in with their episodes, and to help them maintain that style that hopefully the show has set up, and to help maintain that.
How do you approach maintaining that continuity with a team of people like that, or that?
Well, I mean, the thing is that they probably know more about it than you do, because by the time you come in to do, episode whatever it is, those people have all worked on the show and are able to tell you what are the things to watch out for, what are the things that the show sort of does and doesn't do, or tends to do and not to do. It's really up to you whether you want to break out of that for an episode or not. I mean, there was an episode of Breaking Bad which I think was called The Fly. It all took place in the super lab, and it was basically Brian on his own trying to catch a fly. It was his kind of OCD mentality coming out. Well, I mean, that was an episode you could have just ignored all the rules or and just come in and done it. I mean, and the guy did. The guy who directed it did just, it was brilliant. I was very envious of that particular director. But yes, I mean, you lean quite heavily on people around you, the DP, the production designer, and so on, who've worked on the show before you. I mean, obviously, if you come in and you do episodes 1 and 2 of the first season, then you're setting that up yourself. And then other people, hopefully if you've done it well enough, other people will want to follow that basic style to do what you want to do.
And as a class, let's say you're teaching a directing class right now, and very briefly, you can give us the first 3 steps or 5 steps that you do as soon as you get a script. What do? You open and read the script, but what are your kind of follow-up of receiving the script? What do you do next?
Okay, as soon as I get a script, if it's any good, it starts putting pictures in your head. You're really in a bad way if you're reading a script and there's no pictures forming in your head. Then you know that you're in real trouble. So pictures start to form in your head, and you start to jot down things on the script about how you might shoot it. And then you read it again, and you'll have more notes, and you'll start to have notes about the characters and the actors. And then you'll read it again, and you'll have an even firmer. The more times that you read it, the better. Because every time that you read it, you're going to find something new that you want to do, or that you're finding out about it. And each time it'll add to what you're going to do with the camera, with the actors, with the characters.
How many times would you read a script before you actually go out
100
shooting? 100?
100. As many times as you have time for. Once you get the script, you read it at least once a day, once you get it, maybe more.
Mm.
And then, of course, you're always reading parts of it because you're always getting questions about, well, what should we do here, production design-wise, with this scene, or photographing this scene. So you're always looking at individual scenes, but always remember to read the script over again before you go to bed, first thing in the morning, before you go to work, on the way to work. Just keep reading it.
That's great. Well, guys, if you want to say goodbye to Colin, and then Colin, please, your last message to our students. But again, just take the time.
Yeah, well, guys, just, like I say, it's great to see two young people who are, want to do this, and just stick at it and stick with your ideas and be able to listen to people, but know that in the end, you got to know.
Thank you again.
So much. Thank you, Francisco. Yes, this is your house anytime, and again, we appreciate your time with us tremendously.
And likewise, Francisco, anytime. It's been very enjoyable.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Seamus and Michael, thank you for being here. I miss you
guys.
guys a ton, and but I'm very glad that you're working in the field and that you are pursuing your dream. Just keep going.